Good evening, I'm Lynn Reeves, and this is Kyle Reifler. He's the one that kind of takes care of the permits, and what we're here to talk about is swim and buoy zones in the Gulf of Mexico from basically 19th Street to Harrison. That's basically where they run. This is the map of the original buoys where they're placed. And I want to kind of give you a little synopsis of what happened. 2002, the city went together with Bel Shore. Both cities paid for it. And we went to the state and got a buoy permit, put in buoys to try to take care of the safety in the Gulf of Mexico. Then in 2020, we went in to update our buoy section of it, and because we had some buoys that were missing. If you've been in that area, we had buoys that went away with the hurricanes and this, that, and the other. And the state said, well, where's the rest of the buoys? Well, they were in Bel Shore's area. So we updated the permit with our buoys, and we put new buoys in. Long story short, some different things happened. Some people were concerned about buoys in Bel Shore. What it turns out, the situation now is the state is saying our buoys are not correct because the code says, or the statute, which is Florida Statute 327, Section 46 says, idle no wake zones, you have to have establish an ordinance, which we already have that, but it has to be within 500 feet of a boat ramp, a hoist, a marine, railway, or launching a landing facility, or it has to be 500 feet from fuel pumps or things of that nature, dispensary. So what that means is we don't have that in Bel Air Beach. All we have is the Gulf and no boat ramps out there. The only boat ramp we have is on 7th Street. So the state came back and said to us, you need to fix your buoy problem. So that's where we're at right now. We've had discussions with the state. We've had discussions with a couple of work sessions with the city council to discuss this. But we want to get public feedback. So that's the purpose of this meeting, to see where we want to go. So this is the buoy configuration now. Our options are take the buoys out entirely. That's one option. Another option is to create swim zones, and it's only swim zones, no boats, no anything can go in there. Another option is to compartmentalize the swim zones and leave some areas in between them where we can allow a boat to come into shore. A couple of weeks ago, there was a boat that kind of grounded itself on the beach down near Boulder Park. So let's flip to the map where we talked about option one. Okay, this is an option where we declare where the boat zones are. And we leave the swim zones, basically the boat zones small, the swim zones very large and expansive. That's an option. Or option two, we don't even delineate the boat zones. We just basically build a perimeter, like in this area. You can see the buoys. They would be out 300 feet. There would be a buoy at every 150 feet going across, and then 150 feet coming into the shore. And those would be dedicated swim zones. In between those buoys, you could leave this space, and if a boat wanted to come in, they could. So there's kind of two trains of thought there, where if you say it's a boat zone and somebody slips over into the other area, it may not be beneficial to do that. So this is another suggestion of what we might do. We're trying to update the permit with the state, and what has to happen is the buoys that are out there right now, go back to the first one. The buoys that are out there right now, we have to remark them and possibly relocate them depending on what we want to do. If we want to make all of that a swim zone, all we have to do is go out and put stickers on those buoys that say swim zone only. That means no vessels of any type can go in there.
So Glenn, what we see now on the screen, are those all in place? That number of buoys are not in place currently?
There may be one or two missing now, but we put them out there 2 years ago, basically, and they were in place. Right. Right. So the option, you know, and that's what I'm looking for the feedback from some of the residents to say, do you want to have an entire swim zone, or do you want to have a kind of mixture? So, at this point, if there's a question you've got that I can't answer tonight, I put a little card out there, and you can write on it and leave it over there, and we'll get back to you. So now, I guess what I'm asking is public feedback. Any thoughts?
Has the town been asked or questioned by voters, hey, there's a need for this? I mean, obviously, not knowing what all the rules are, I've never seen a boat beached up on the beach.
It's hit and miss occasionally. You know, as an example,
Do you live in a condo?
No.
No.
someone might, as an example, let's say, well, who is you? You live where you live. Okay. If you had guests and they were down at the beach and you wanted to take your boat, and I don't know if you have a boat, but if you wanted to take your boat out there and pick them up, in the current situation, we can do that because it's an idle, no wake zone. But we have to correct that because we don't qualify for it. Now, if it's a swim zone, you couldn't do that. As an example, you couldn't take your boat out there and go into the beach and pick someone up. If it's broken up into swim zones, you could do that.
Would paddle boards and whatever be allowed in all these swim zones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mainly motorized vessels, like Sea-Doos or...
Right, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So perhaps you could give us some background on why these buoys were put there. When did they started in 2002?
Right.
And what was the public policy reason for having them?
I don't factually know what that was because in 2002 I wasn't here for one reason, but I do know that the buoys were put out there to kind of slow the boats down because maybe there was a problem with speeding boats, you know, coming along the shoreline. I have no idea if there was or wasn't, but that's probably why they were put in. And at the time, the statute allowed you to have an idle no wake zone.
So any police reports or any injuries ever
No.
reported? Nothing's ever been indicated that
No.
anything has ever happened that
No.
would cause this to be done?
No.
It just was done.
What?
This was just done. It was no rationale behind it. It was not. there's
Well,
no-
I'm sure there was some rationale, but
What was it?
At the same time, they also put them in Indian Rocks and Indian Shores.
yeah, I think the rationale was
Pretty much
probably
the
the
same
safety.
time frame all the way down the
They
beach.
thought, you know,
I mean, but there's been never any incidents that you know.
No.
of.
no. We haven't had any incidents to my knowledge.
So why do we do it?
Well, that's the question that I'm asking you tonight. Why do we need them? Do we need them? Or do we just, you know, because what the state's done now with the issues that's been brought up, the state has said you need to fix your ordinance and you need to fix what you're doing. Swim zone, you can't have an idle zone because you don't meet the qualifications. So it's either, for the matter of lack of words, it's all or none, you know. But you can break it up.
They're requiring a swim zone if it's a buoy.
If you want to exclude vessels, then you have to create a swim zone. And the state says in their statute, and what it's designated as public bathing beach or swim area. And the buoys out in the Gulf would have to be re-stickered if we made it all a swim zone completely.
So we have not used slip number one at the arena for, what, about a year and a half for rentals. Why could that not be opened up for boaters that are residents of this city strictly to pick up their guests? Since we are not using it because of the so-called outfall. And then you would have a place to dock a boat to load people, just like you would at 7th Street when that project is completed. Then this would be moving on.
Well, there is an outfall, that slip is very small, and that's why it was taken away several years ago. That's what I know about. There is an outfall at that point. We have allowed it to be open, but it's depending, I guess, on the width of the boat, you may not even be able to get a small boat in there, but
Yeah, I'll give you a couple different things other than a hat drop off there. The reason I had asked you if you were in the condo, so when you had said that, because I wanted to hear visually from a condo owner. As someone who's boated 40 years on this coast, this area really is safe. And we know that. So what we're trying to accomplish is satisfy the need to answer to the FWC. So as it relates to why do people pull up to the sand? Typically in this area, and I'm trying to think of up there, and Leslie, maybe you would know, there's an area with great buildings. It seems in the summer around the 4th of July, that area has some people come in for a month or weeks or whatever it is. A couple boats are out there at night. A couple boats are in there, fishing boats. They're vacationers. And they're doing what I would do too if I was on vacation. Other than that, it is very rare to see people pull up, even residents. But when they do, it's because wherever you live in the city, maybe family is down on the beach. They have a couple chairs. You're bringing the boat all the way around through the pass. You're out doing whatever, fishing, what have you, coming from another area. And you know they're there, so you're going to pull straight in, anchor, never in the sand, enjoy some time with them, give them some rides. As it relates to the dog, maybe you're going to carry the dog off the beach, walk home, walk him, or go walk the dog into home. But it's not visually a situation where we have boats coming in all day, all weekend. It's very rare. So I think the real question is not the traffic and why. It's do we want to take away what we've been for 70 years, and that's the ability as a resident to pull your boat up and anchor on those rare occasions. So visually, when you look at a line, this is where I was Sunday, just verifying this visually. Boaters outside the city know when there's a marker. I'm not going to go in there. Or if I do, I'm going to check to see what it states on the buoy. And Kyle, can you go back to the one that just had swim zones? So this one is interesting. If you took out some of these middle, and I know, Lynn, that you had mentioned FWC suggested putting something in the middle, these, not the straight line on the outside.
In the middle, going from 300 foot to.
Now, so you spaced those out 300 feet. Visually, if you're outside the city of Ballard Beach, you don't know what our ordinances are. You're not even going there as a destination. You see buoys, and you're not going inside. If you did now, you would realize it stated idle no wake. If it changes and it states swim zone, motor exclusion, whatever it may be, they're not going to pull in. Even if you do have these gaps that we as a city know are just gaps. So from a citizen perspective, to solve the problem, regardless of all the history, I think the goal should be to how do we satisfy FWC while we make sure everyone's happy with what we've been able to do for a very long time without any problems. That's just if you keep the buoys. I don't know if that helps. I like what you did here, Lynn, and I don't know if it's specific
Well, these are
to
just
like the walkways. Like,
Yeah.
we have 4 walkways.
right. There's some depictions.
I feel as if Morgan Street Park should be designated, however it falls into the coordinates, as definitely an area that one of these motor exclusions falls into. And leave open the 4 walkways. Again, no one outside the city is really aware, other than we're gonna have a line of buoys all the way north to south that swims them. They're not even gonna attempt to go in there. But and I wanted to hear some condo feedback, but it seems like it's an easy fix if we just use those walkways that we just built as I don't even know if it has to be that wide, 50 yards, 70 yards, whatever it is, 35 each way. Just leave that capability for someone to come in. And we've satisfied everything we need to on the buoys, but if others have concerns tied to, hey, I don't want to ever see a boat in the city coming up to the water, then we need to address that. We need to talk about this. We're all in it together. Whether it's unfortunate or fortunate that we're talking about it, we've got a problem we need to solve. And these are some great options.
Where do foilers fit into the motorized vehicle?
What?
Where do foilers fit into this?
They're not motorized, so they,
Yeah, they are.
well,
Yeah.
if they're motorized, then they would be, as
So-
an example, they couldn't come in here.
Okay.
They
They
had-
couldn't come in any of the swim zones because they'll launch from the beach. They won't be
Right.
coming in.
Right.
So I
If they've
just
got a
wondered-
motor on them,
Yeah.
that's what when it's a swim zone, that's what it means. Motor
Yeah.
can't come in.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you pull into it with the motor on the back not working?
Not in a swim zone.
What about if you anchor the boat and the tides are always moving and the wind's always moving?
If it's
No,
what?
When you anchor, particularly if you anchor overnight, you put out as much rope as you can.
Right.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. So, when we do it, it's maybe 300 feet of rope. And so it will go, 600 feet.
Well, we
in one-
just haul your boat out. No problem.
But I mean, the wind's going to blow it in every different direction, even though it's
There-
just stationary. And nobody
There's
can-
not a perfect solution to all of it.
Yeah.
There's just not. That's tides, winds,
What kind of
this
boat
isn't the
is it?
perfect
What kind of boat?
300 feet. That's not,
It's 28-foot center console fishing.
that's, right.
Lynn,
Trying to find out exactly what you're talking about, kind of pick people up
Yeah.
and go out fishing and come
We're
back.
not necessarily leaving it overnight, though.
Well, we're from time to time,
Our buoys trip, so I think one part of this discussion should be, what's the cost to the city to maintain the buoys? We don't own a boat. Actually, I don't even know how you do that now.
We hire a contractor. Many years ago, they used to drill them in. For the most part, they don't do that anymore. What they do is they put a heavy concrete anchor on them, and they just drop that in.
And they move, we know that.
Yeah, but years ago, they used to drill them in with like a helicoil drill. And unfortunately, when a buoy breaks away from that, it's a struggle to even find it. Well, it's even a struggle with the concrete, but we try to keep the coordinates, like on the first map, there's coordinates that are where you GPS them, and that's where you put them back. And we hire a contractor to put them back in. What we do is go out and buy the buoys ourselves, sticker them. That way, there is some savings to the city by us doing that, buying the buoy direct from the manufacturer. Roger.
Yeah, the portion of the conversation, it appears that we have a lot of voters here, and that's great, because there should be a way that we can find a way where both swimmers and boaters can have safe access. And looking at this map, I think if I was a boater and I was coming in, if they had that many zones, there'd be so many lines coming out that you wouldn't have a clue where you could come in. Well, is that a swim zone or is that a boat zone? So it seems like a feasible way to do it, so that if, the only time I've ever even seen a boat come on is when one of the guys right at our access had a big party and they were just coming in rows. But that's really the only time I ever saw that
Once in a
happen.
while, you see a
Yeah.
sea-doo or something.
So what that tells me is we don't need a ton of these. It would probably just say put one in the north and one in the south. And you, people who are picking up people, they could just walk up to the area. We only have, what is it, 2 mile long beach?
You can.
Yeah.
1
So
mile.
just give them an access zone so that they could meet their goal of being able to pick up their family. But most of the people using that are swimmers, and we want to make sure that they have a safe. I'm more concerned about what she was talking about. We've already seen bicycles with the battery motors. Well,
E-bikes.
these spoilers have got those motors underneath them, and
They're hydrophones,
they're
yeah.
just like a surfboard. Well, every beach in California's got zones for boats and for surfers and for that, and then they have a swim area because there's too many people running into them. And we don't see the problem right now, but I can see foiling becoming a problem for our beaches because the kids are already starting to use the beach for their e-bikes and.
Well, they're not,
They're
that's a
not kids.
violation now.
I understand that, but
Or-
that's still happening. So does that
Right.
make it safer? No, it doesn't. You do need to be concerned about that, so.
Well, I agree with Roger on that because, I mean, if we think about it, on Gulf Boulevard, we only have a couple of walkovers to physically get over to the F4. But from First to Causeway, we have one crosswalk. So why so many swim zones and buoy zones? I don't.
Well, you're missing the point. We're not talking about crosswalks, we're talking about
I got
walkovers.
it, no, but what I'm saying to you is why have, if we only have so many walkovers off across the main road, okay, then why have so many swim zones? Is what I'm saying to you, and non-swim zones. I think it's confusing. I think that, people just need to have like say go four blocks or something, and then you have a pool in for boats or something. I don't think you need to have that many spots. I think it's just crazy to have that many spots. Plus, then when we're talking about a cost factor here, then there's more buoys yet.
We have to mark them off, right? The swim zones, yeah, that's.
Yeah, so what would happen, the long list of buoys, we would have to adjust them. These would probably stay the same, but in the first option, they would stay the same. But we may have to relocate some or buy some additional buoys. So basically, if you look at the swim zones here, we're gonna have to buy 10 additional buoys.
And I had a two-part question here. The other part was, if we are going to mark those buoys ourselves to save money, and they only weigh, say, 50 pounds, can we not, and they're floating basically, they can float in a storm, why can't we place them ourselves and save some cost?
We can't place them buoys. How would I place them? What are those, Kyle, the anchor? It's probably 400 pounds. You'll have a concrete.
Okay, 400 pounds, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
How much
That's
do we think?
Yeah, we can buy the buoy,
Right.
but the anchor and stuff, we have no capability to do that.
No, that
That's
makes
a
sense.
company that does that.
I-
I'm just going to say, an observation from a design perspective, the KISS principle, keep it simple. What I'm seeing here is you're designing this thing and laying it out and around boats. And boats are the occasional infrequent guys, and the swimmers are the guys who are always out there.
Right.
So you're adding a level of complexity here for a boater, and your main customer is the swimmer.
Well, if we have, as an example, boat zones, we can do away with that, put one there, or put one, this is just a theory.
I think what's missing is sometimes the language confuses throw us off. So, right now, in our entire history as a city, we swim and we boat.
Right.
Okay? Everywhere. It's not like one or the other.
Right.
And there's been no problems.
Right.
But because of the situation, we have to do some markings differently.
Right.
It's not as if people aren't swimming where one of these gaps are. We've been doing that for so many years. Let's keep that in mind.
Well, you have been doing it because the aisle zone that we currently have that we can't have anymore, that's what it's been.
Yes.
There's no issue about, and we haven't had any accidents. None, that I know
And I
of.
just wanted to add to, and Jim, I'm sorry if I may have said, did I say walkways on the road? Because we have 4 new
Boardwalks.
Yeah, those boardwalks that go from, the
Go
over the
full
COs. That's just a perfect, simple designation. Okay, let's grab 50 yards here and keep it simple. Not much is changing on the way that we do business here. We're just changing the markings, and those that do know need to understand those areas, whatever you decide, is where you're allowed to. You can still swim there, just like you always can.
Right.
And all the other stuff.
And that's part of my
Oh,
thought, don't mark it as a boat zone.
Right.
Just,
No, you wouldn't do that anyways. You're marking no vessel, no motor vessel, so the markings are clear on how they will allow you to do it. And all voters that don't know about it are going to stay out because of the natural line.
right.
The things such as all the different variables to beaching, I think I know what is being referenced on those motorized boards that rise up. I think some of that is for different ordinances that are originating from the beach. So whether it's motorized bikes, whether it's,
We just started the ban on that.
I would hate to see us as a city take away a kayak, someone, so
That's not the intent.
let's not overthink it.
Has anyone considered the aesthetic nuisance of putting another 30 or so buoys out there in the Gulf? I mean, I think part of the
You aren't
beauty,
putting 30 buoys out there.
they're already,
I-
I just counting them up.
Well,
There's
those
5.
are already there.
Well, that's
These
just.
are here
I know.
already. They're not changed.
That's what I'm saying, those are not exactly attractive as you're walking along the beach and you see all that plastic stuff floating around out there. I mean, has anybody considered any of that? I mean, these are some of the most beautiful beaches in the country. Why would you want to litter them up with all this garbage out there, and it really is aesthetic nuisance to the Gulf of Mexico?
I'm sorry to jump in, and, it's an interesting point. It goes back to that question of, do you want buoys? We probably do. But when they're in a straight line parallel to the beach, it does a lot more than you think. And that's from a safety perspective, regardless of how they're marked. But what he's referencing are those ones that give the box feel.
Right.
And that's a recommendation by the FWC, not a requirement.
Right.
So you don't have to do that. If you
Well,
are,
I don't know if you have to or not.
yeah, thanks, we can verify that. I'm under the impression you don't. They suggest you do,
Yes.
but you don't.
What it says here, it has to be designated, okay? So if you're gonna designate a swim zone, how do you, if you're gonna do it in boxes, as an example,
That's fair.
you're gonna have to designate it. That's what it says in the statute. You gotta designate.
So we can't say from this street to this street is a
Yeah,
swim zone.
that's what.
But we have to designate, we'd have to
Right.
mark it off.
Right.
What
I
do
do
you
want to,
think, Bob? Yeah.
What I was saying is,
With
you
the
know,
kids.
it keeps coming up that, we've never had a problem, but going back to what Mr. Lutz has said, we've never had a problem because we've always had that line, even though we haven't had designated swim or boat zones, so that's why we haven't had a problem, because we've had buoys. Hold on. But, and I'm not in favor of no buoys. I think we need buoys. I kind of like this setup with the swim zone only markings, no boat markings. But I agree, with Glenn, we should make the swim ones bigger because there's more swim areas than boat areas. And I'm not saying where to put them, that's up to you guys to decide. But we definitely need something. And I think it's better, like what Mr. Lusk was saying, once this happens, the citizens of this city are gonna know what is there and what's not there. So, like, I know Dave, you've done it, I've done it, we've gone around and picked up family off the beach when they're here. We'll know where to go safely, and we're responsible voters, so we know. So it's not us we have to worry about. It's like that one you said was beach, and the drunk ones, if they see 0 buoys, they're just gonna go whatever they want. Now boating, when I see a buoy, I'm not gonna be running up against it, I know to stay away. So I think we have to have buoys for safety, and the argument that we've never had a problem doesn't mean we won't tomorrow. And if we can prevent one future death, then it's worth the buoys to me, but that's my medical knowledge. Go ahead.
I agree with Glenn on this too, and great points. But in reference though to the people who do have boats, I never realized that they wanted an access to where they could come in. And I don't have an issue with that. I think we should be accommodating the people in our community, but it just seems like in Con France they do it, in Newport Beach, California they do it. It seems like all over the country, every one of them has buoys, and they have a large swim zone, and they have one place to come in for the boats. Some places with a really long beach have 2, but and I think as long as we let our boaters know where they are, so they can pick up their families or whatever they need to do. So it seemed like it would be central rather than on one end or the other. But then that way it keeps the swim zone integrity there. And I think that's what.
Put a boat area north and south.
And so at most 2, but admittedly it's confusing because they see this and they say, okay, there's 5, and that probably is overkill for us. And so it's.
Well, yeah, there's 4.
But there is buoys from an aesthetic standpoint. Obviously, you want to bring in your boat anywhere, but I can't think of a major beach in the world where they don't have buoys.
I could think of plenty. I don't know of any in Long Island. I don't know of any in New Jersey. I don't know of any in Maryland. I don't know any in
Well, I don't
North
know
Carolina.
anybody. I'm not a boater, so I don't want to be
I'm just
able to
telling
cold.
you
I want to
that
be
you need
boating
to
where
go
it's
do
warm.
some more.
People are
Actually,
swimming
if
in
you go
Rhode Island
to
and New
Google
Jersey.
Maps and look from Pensacola to Jacksonville, this is about the only place you see it in the state.
Okay, well, I
So
would
just-
disagree.
just-
But
well, don't
but in
look at it.
California, that's just warm water, so you can
Yeah, but
swim
they're
in
not
it.
bringing
But not up
boaters.
in Nantucket.
Because there's not much access for voters there. But if you look at the state
So
of
we
Florida,
could go up just to Sankey, and we could go to Clearwater, there's no buoys, so.
Yeah, there's no
Clearwater designates the public beach purposely, as we have to guarantee ourselves as a city that we designate somewhere in that zone, Morgan Park. But if you just get out in the water, you're north and south, there are no buoys in a
Okay,
lot of
well, now, I'm not a buoy fanatic. I'm just saying that to me, it seems like a good idea. And, but it seems like we're trying to make a lot of things just for a boating audience. And I think our boaters should be taken care of, but why do they need the entire beach? Because I have seen people going very fast close to the shore. I know you're probably responsible, but I have seen speedboats going along our shore very close, especially during the spring break time. And so.
So I agree with you, Len, that I think we should just have one north and one south. I mean, that's all we need is we need just 2. Because if we also, here's the other options. Again, you have 7th Street, you can pull up and pick up from, okay? You also, if you open
It's
up
on the
slip,
base,
I'm still talking. If you open up the first slip,
I
at the
don't-
marina,
I don't see
strictly
that
for
as
our
a-
residents,
I don't see that.
that's another option.
It's an outfall there. The
We
area.
had a boat there, we were renting that dock out.
It's a
That's
city boat.
It's a liability.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we keep going to the bayside.
Yeah, he's talking about the beach. We are talking about the
I think a lot of people in here, or everyone in here, goes to the beach. So we got this whole swimming thing down.
Yeah.
Those that do boat should probably give a little bit more perspective on the boating. Because that's all we're really dealing with. It's not as if they're getting special privilege, because the reality is, that's what we've always had.
Right.
And we've never had issues. We should keep buoys. Going on the bayside and pick someone up. Let me give you an example of a family. Son, daughter-in-law, baby, wherever on the north side of town, or middle of the town, and I want to take them out. They have to walk a half mile versus 50 yards to get on a boat. That's the purpose of breaking it up this way. again, we don't have an issue. We already vote. It's just not visible to anyone because it's not a problem. So those that do vote are probably in favor of more spaces. Let's not get caught on it. It's not unsafe. We've always been doing it.
The scenario I was going to talk about is there's a marina, there's two marinas south of here, and they're both used by many people that live in this city. It's a long way to go get your boat, get them, pull it out of the line, drop it in the water. You don't really know how long it's going to take, but certainly if you've got visitors or family with small children, you don't want to take them and make them do all that. Instead, go to the beach and wait. So if you're lugging all that stuff to get on the boat, how far are they expected to walk to get to that boat? I'm not against buoys and I'm not against swim zones, but there are things to consider because it's for people that don't live on the water, pain in the butt to go get your boat, load everything up, and then pull around. You've got to go way up top, come around, and find them.
Right.
You know, you have to know how to find them also. So we just have to be careful about what we do because at the end of the day, the customer is us. It's all of us, and it does have impact, especially people that really don't. They're not in shape for whatever reason to make that trek from their house across Gulf Boulevard to across the beach, and then you still have to lug all your gear wherever to catch up to whoever's driving the boat.
Listen,
I think we have to remember that even though certain areas are designated as swim zone, nothing says I can't swim between those swim zones. I mean, it's just, I can swim anywhere I want on that beach. It's just that a boat might be coming in there.
That's
It's sort of swim at your own risk, if you will.
we do it. They do
Yeah,
it.
not for the swimmers.
They do it every day.
I can tell you this, if I'm doing 30 miles per hour and I see that, I'm staying away. I'm not going to get there. If I get even close to that, I'm going to be at idle speed, just because that means there's people.
Right. Yeah, and you always get the stray guy. You always get these individuals. That's going to happen on the road, bikes, motorcycles. You know, I was out on Sunday again, and I was looking at, so is it Indian Rocks or Indian Shores? It's nice to have Indian Shores.
Indian Rocks.
Indian Rocks. So that gap between Bel Air Shores and Bel Air Beach, that's their decision, one. But even having our buoys, and you can see in the distance the buoys of the next town, as a boater, that still keeps you in line of staying out that far. Again, you'll have idiots, they're gonna come in and mess things up.
Doesn't matter where you,
Yeah, but
there's people that will do that.
you know, as long as we keep a straight line, and again, we can pick this apart to death, and
So I think, no, I was next, actually, I
No,
got
actually,
bypassed
you were.
twice. No, I got bypassed twice.
Okay.
Okay, I was watching. So first of all, okay, if you've got your boat dry docked somewhere, your people can pull their cars up there, and when the boat gets put in the water, they can actually get on the boat. So that one doesn't hold water. So, no pun intended. But the other thing, this looks so commercialized. We keep trying to talk about aesthetics within our city. With that many zones, that looks very commercialized, okay? I think it looks horrible, but I don't think we need to have that many zones. Now, plus, we have more people that walk over, and that was my point, to go swimming, okay? Then we have people that pull the boats up to pick up people who are swimming. Yes, I think we should have a designated area for the boats to come in, okay? But I don't think it needs to be that cluttered. I just, I mean, I just don't think there needs to be that many zones, that's all.
So right now, on the westerly side of that, all those buoys are currently there.
Right.
Would it be possible to have a different colored buoy on the corners? Do away with the buoys that are in between the beach and the ones that are currently out there. Because anybody that's going to boat and wants to know what the rules are, and is going to see that okay, this buoy to the beach is aligned, whether you see it or not. I mean, I've boated out here for 4 years, and we stay outside of the buoys. And a lot of times we'll fish the buoys looking for triple tail or something. We're never running right next to the buoys. Most people don't. You will have your odd person, but plus that you can't regulate every single person in the world. But you can eliminate some of the buoys. To this gentleman's point about having just a lot of not trash, but visual. You can eliminate those ones in the middle, leave the ones that are currently out there, and maybe just mark the corners. And like anything else, when someone moves into the city, they get a welcome to the city. Here's this, here's that. Well, here are the beach rules. But
You're right, too, Sean.
just have those buoys that are currently out there. I mean, you're not going to see all that, right?
No, we do need additional buoys, I agree with that, but I'm saying, like having all these side swim zones.
I just don't think you'll see it. It's not something visual.
I see.
Yeah.
I think they were.
The first and foremost thing is, this is being done for safety, safety of the swimmers. That's really what this whole discussion is about. We want to perpetuate that with the proliferation of all these wave runners and other motorized vessels that come close to shore. We need to protect the people who are swimming. Maybe we can take some of these swim zones and put them together and have a couple less loaded users and spread it out a little bit wider. And it won't be such a visual issue.
That's what this meeting's about.
The reason we're doing it is not because we weren't, as a city, looking to improve. There's a different reason why. Because we're being told to, so that's the problem, is that it wasn't tied to, we got a safety issue.
Well, no, but I mean, that's the resistance of the first.
Yeah, I agree.
We're there as a safety.
100%.
But now, our issue is trying to meet the code, under a law that's in place, and how we best do that, to preserve the safety and the community pristine.
I would ask closure on that. Is there a way we could get an answer defined, direct question to FWC? That we know that it's stated designate swim zone. Do we have to have those middle buoys?
Well, from the conversation I had with him, he said if you're going to designate swim zones, you got to outline. That's what he told me. And he's the one that said you should put 150 foot from the shore on the side. That's what well, you can do that, and that's, maybe this is a boat zone, and that boat zone doesn't exist, and that one doesn't exist, and then the other one does.
That's basically option one, right? That's basically what option one wants.
Well,
Or more or less.
No, option one was bigger swim zones, but there were 3 boat zones.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so
right.
you shrink it to a couple boat zones.
We're getting somewhere. We're all making progress.
Yeah.
Nice job, everybody.
Can I
That
make a
one shows Morgan Street, which it shouldn't be a road.
Right.
So, but anyways.
Can I make a compromise? Can we combine option 1 and 2, longer swim zones, but eliminate the boat zones and make those? I guess what I'm saying is, you see, what they're saying is, we don't want to have like 10 boat zones, which I agree, even as a voter. So do like this, where the swim zones are long, and instead of that one in the middle, just have the top and the bottom, so we have a long swim zones, but we don't designate them as boat zones like in option 2. So long swim zones in 1, don't designate them like in option 2. Okay, so Kyle, can you whip up option 3 real quick? I'm just kidding.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
this is about swim zones, and the majority of the discussion's around boats. I mean, what, we lost
Because
boat,
you're taking away
right?
boating
So
rights.
I agree with you. Reduce the complexity, one large swim zone, if it's not a designated swim zone, you can bring a boat in at the top or the bottom. The other thing that's fallen out of this thing is the complexity you're adding for the swimmer. Because people are going to the beach to swim, how are you going to designate the swim zones on the beach side? The boaters are having a problem identifying where they can come in, but on the beach, people are dragging their kids around and we could have signage and flags on the beach saying, okay, this is a swim zone, this is the boat.
We're doing that now.
Well, I think
Not
the
necessarily.
purpose,
We
like
don't
he
have
said,
to-
the purpose
we
of the
swim in the
buoys is
boat.
to keep the boaters out, not the swimmers in. And it's swim at your own risk. But I will say, my only thing is just make sure there's swim zones at those walkovers. Because nobody would want to walk right there in front of the walkover, bang on the boat, like just the boat zone a little bit
So
off.
would you be willing to move down a boat zone and move up a boat zone north or south,
Yeah.
instead of having it the farthest point?
You have
You
a
can do
swim
whatever you
zone,
want.
if it's not a swim zone, you can bring a boat in.
And if you think about it, if you're planning
All
on
we're-
picking up your family on the beach with your boat, you're gonna look at your designated areas and say, family, you need to go to this area of the beach, and I'll pick you up there.
Right.
Not just willy-nilly, go there and I'll just show up someplace.
And you may
Well,
know.
we would use, and I think the best thing to do is use wherever, in the north end, wherever there's a beach access easement with the dune walkover, should be a potential as a boat zone.
But not right in front, maybe
No, maybe
a
to the
smidgen
side.
over where you can handle it.
Right, but keeping in mind that some people that are bringing their boats to the shore to pick up their family or whatever, they probably drove there, so they have to pull that car somewhere. And if they're not residents of Miller Beach, they're not supposed to be parking in the streets.
It isn't just
So you gotta keep be thinking about that as well.
I think we're going off in
Yeah.
too deep here.
So we're making progress. People are stating that the bigger the swim zone helps. As a boater, it would be wonderful if you move a north one south a little bit, and a south one north a little bit. Other than that, well, we're all making progress.
I think we need, if we're gonna make boat zones, we need to make the access to them from across the beach. So, as an example, if you've got a company, you could tell them, okay, the access at the motel, okay, that's where you should go.
Yeah, just south of it is where the boat will pick up.
Right.
Right.
You know, so
And then the
here's the
other one-
walkthrough, so maybe the boat zone is there or here.
Yeah, as long as it's
And
not
the
right
other
in
one is-
front, because that's where people
Right.
park their stuff to just swim.
Well,
Yeah.
I do think that the gentleman in the red shirt though did have a good idea though, because for the boaters, and again, I'm not a boater, but it would seem it would be nice where the two zones are, instead of whatever color the buoys are, that they have like a red one, so that they know in between the two red, whatever color you choose, I just have to say red because he's wearing a red shirt. So that way it lets them know where they can come into the beach if
The
they're.
FWC would have an issue with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was
so
asking.
requirements on
They
buoys,
have
and stickers.
This color.
Yeah, you can't,
You can't.
the Fish and Wildlife would have a,
It's gonna be up to the boater, as it is now, to look at what the regulations are. There's, like, there was past, there's a no wake zone that
Right.
is marked, but it's enforced.
It goes back to people in this town are gonna know.
Sure.
The people out there, they're just gonna pull up onto any beach that doesn't look busy and park and have a good time. It's gonna discourage them.
Right.
I think is what we're going for. And what's this, how, like the buoys spacing, they have to be 300, 150 yards
they're
apart? What-
150 now, aren't they?
Is there a set guideline, how far apart?
They're 300 off the beach and then 300 apart.
Yeah.
And
Now,
ones that are
So
off-
that's regulation.
right, but the FWC, this is where they said, if you're gonna make it a swim zone, you need to
Can't have it.
put them on the side.
So, no, what I'm saying is, because those are the set guidelines, it can't be like 400 or 500,
No,
okay.
no.
So we are stuck with that many buoys that way, okay.
Right.
But because we have bigger swim zones, we're gonna have less of those
Yeah.
middle ones, so we can save some money there for less
Yeah,
or
if
something.
you end up with two, let's say you end up with two boat zones,
Yeah.
You're talking about 4 buoys.
Right,
That's
so
it.
it's not a financial issue, it's more of a logistics.
So I have a two-part question. It's the jurisdiction. Now, first of all, everybody knows that this sand bottom belongs to the federal government, not to Fish and Wildlife. That's a well-established part of law. So who has jurisdiction over enforcing this? The Coast Guard or who?
The sheriff can do it, Marine Patrol can do it.
But they don't have jurisdiction. That's not, it's
Yeah,
it's
well,
federal
you're missing
property.
that. The jurisdiction of the city of Bel Beach goes out 10 miles into the water.
Well, that's not.
It's our jurisdiction.
That's not accurate. I
Yeah,
know
that
this,
is
I know this for sure. I represent Treasurer Salvors. I've been through this in litigation with state and federal courts. I know this is federal property.
No,
So-
that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's our property. I'm saying that our jurisdictional boundary. So, as an example, we have a sheriff's marine patrol. Our jurisdictional boundary on this side goes out 10 miles, on that side goes to the middle of it.
And so who's gonna enforce this? I mean, who's gonna write tickets on
That's
this?
so funny.
So,
Well-
well, we're
You know what?
contracted with the sheriff
The majority of the
We
enforcement
have to
on the
incorporate
water is in the
into
bay,
the
where the
contract.
problems are. So all this, you're in the zone, you're out of it, good luck.
But how are you gonna determine this? I mean, how, is the guy gonna be sitting out there with, some very sophisticated field glasses trying
No.
to figure this out and say, oh, okay, we're gonna cite your boat
If-
because it drifted into the swim?
Typically, if there's a problem, the sheriff's office is called and the marine unit is dispatched. That's typically what happens.
You mean fish and the state people?
No,
Well, the thing for
Well-
you know where the thing is down there, Salt Rock, it would take a boat
Park.
40 minutes to get up here.
no, I know where you're talking about, but
But that's where they all come from.
that's where they come from. But they're out in intercoastal, they're out along the Gulf, they're out there. That's what their job is, to patrol. It's like the Coast Guard. I mean, the Coast Guard can stop anybody they want, either out there or in here. They can stop and ask you to board your boat and look at it.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, just.
But all we're talking
The
about
boat is anchored, and just say it's out there for a day or so, and it, drifts because you've got the anchor line out. Who's to say, well, you're, 3 inches over the line here, and then we have this,
Really?
we're not going to that
No,
science.
well, I don't know, we have so many cops going up and down the beach, they can call in everything.
Let's keep in mind, you boat and swim now, we don't have an issue. We can make an issue out of anything.
Yeah.
We've kind of learned that we do that. So the issue is collaborating together on the issue. We're changing Valor Beach forever as a result of this revision. So that's a sad day. The issue is, are we going to give some access to boats, or do you want it to be all swim zone, which we've never done? That's all. It's the policing thing. You'd be really surprised how limited you see a sheriff, Coast Guard, FWC in the Gulf right in front of Bel Beach unless they're going on a call. So they're wasting our time if we're calling them and their resources. How about a, hey, excuse me, neighbor, could you move it over a little? That's just out of, that's okay. But we're off.
So I guess what I want to kind of get from the group is the consensus to just put a couple boat zones in there, one north and south. In the easement walkthroughs, the new walkovers area, and the rest of it, leave it swim zone.
Just make sure the boat zone's not like, you said, not directly in front of.
Right. It'll be to the right or left.
100 yards from the,
Yeah.
As the only one that seems to care about the boater side, if you're going to do that, I prefer it to be moved up and moved down. If you're going to make two
Well,
open zones.
I think we need to, wherever the accesses are, that's how we have to create it.
Well, that was the whole idea, using all of that, but we got into a discussion of movies and ways.
Well, but it's one of those things, like if you know you're gonna pick up your family and one of the accesses is near the 19th by the Bel Air Motel, you tell your family to walk to that access, but the next day, when you're not gonna pick them up, they can go to any one of them. and-
Right.
So here's
That's
how
just
that really
pre-planned.
works though, just to clarify, I mean, I don't know who votes here, but it isn't just about picking someone up. There are days where you're coming back from John's Pass on a lunch and go, you know what, let's pop in the water, let's have a beer. And you're sitting by your boat with the music on. It happens all the time. So it isn't just for a situation of pick the family up, go walk across to walk the dog. People boat in the water. So if you're out and you boat, you know this, go up to Three River, people are in the water.
We do it all the time.
The majority of the time, right? So the same thing. So it isn't just a pickup zone. It's give the boaters that live here the ability to use the Gulf the way we always have. That's the discussion from my perspective.
Go ahead.
All of this discussion is to comply with FWC. Can you clarify, what's the repercussions if you did nothing, just left status quo? Who's it there? You know, are we trying to fix a problem that doesn't really exist, or we're
Well,
just trying to find?
Unfortunately, because of, I'll call it conversations with the FWC, it's created an issue where the FWC has said, you either comply with the statute, or you take it.
Could they force you to take them out, or could they just disappear by small nutrition?
Well, legally, I guess they could.
I mean, I understand the argument that maybe we haven't had issues and problems and accidents because the buoys exist. But I think if you look at other areas, if you look at Caladesi or Anclote Key, you've got more boat traffic, more swimmers in the water than any place. The density is so much higher. And when was the last time there was an accident up there?
Yeah, so the only thing in Caladesi, and rightfully so, and why I keep bringing up Morgan Street Park, it's just the Carlisle Country Club public side of the Gulf is where they designated a box plan for buoys. Other than that, north and south of that, no buoys. Absolutely beautiful up there. That's why I think Morgan Street, because we have so many people with residents and outside individuals, we need to designate that no matter
But
what.
I fly over Anclote Key all the time, and that's where all the boaters are just
Right.
pulling up to the beach, all the swimmers in the water. There's no protections there.
No.
Right.
Actually, most, you know, if you go to the other side of the state, there's no buoys anywhere in the land. But over here, it's kind of hit and miss. And for the most part, in the coast of the buoys is stopped. There aren't.
So the only thing that's driving this thing is we're concerned that FWC is going to say, if you don't do anything, you got to pull the buoys.
Well, that's what they said.
Is that something we can talk to them about and say, are you really going to
Well,
enforce it? Do you have to-
You know, I can't tell you they're gonna come enforce it, I'm just telling you what they're telling us. And unfortunately, the situation that created it is, got out of hand. And that's
Have
the-
but have they given us a deadline for compliance?
No, they've been very good about, and basically what they said to me was, because I said, are we gonna have to go out and GPS all these buoys and do that? They said, no, just take, like, this is, what, 19th Street, 100 foot north of it. We have to create a new ordinance, because our ordinance doesn't meet the state statute. Or we abolish that ordinance altogether, then we don't have that issue.
But is it a possibility that if nothing was done, this whole issue would die on the vine? We just maintain status quo?
I can't tell you that that's gonna happen based on,
And that's not a safe way to look at it. I mean, our number one goal in this city is safety for our citizens. That is our number one strategic thing on our strategic plan. There's been many of boats that have come close, and they're still going, okay, when there was people out there swimming. So I think there should be buoys in the thing. And as far as Anclote Key goes, that is basically a general, there's no population there. In other words, this is all residential here. And that's the difference, okay, between the two. This is residential, so you can't do that by comparison. Second thing, a lot of boat rentals go on, that city, this city, and we're kind of caught in between, okay? So we have to address the issue for the protection of our citizens in one way or the other. And to just let them float away or never do anything would be so wrong on the city's part when it comes to the safety factor, okay?
And then just to piggyback with that, I mean, I understand where you're going, but my fear would be, are you gonna poke the bear more? Like if they're already kind of targeting us and looking at us by doing nothing and ignoring them, is that gonna piss them off more? And then they're gonna come back with God knows what, and then we're gonna get in more trouble. So I think the compromise is to, for safety's sakes, my option 3, have the bigger swim zones with 2 designated boat zones and kind of find the happy medium. We gotta do something to keep peace
Sounds like a good.
with government, so maybe we should just do the minimal that we need to do.
Right.
We don't have to get all crazy and fancy and do, and I think, like you said, it'd be less buoys if we did the longer swim zones.
You said do we agree that there's never been a safety issue with this, ever, and since the beginning of Bel Air Beach? Has there ever been
I didn't live
any
there
incident
70 years ago.
whatsoever?
I don't know. Maybe
Because
there was.
we talk about this strong thing with safety, but it's never been a problem, never.
I can tell you that since 2002, since the buoys were out there, there's never been a safety problem. And prior to that, I have no idea.
So I would say our track record of having
I know they
buoys
weren't
and
there
no
in 98,
incidences
but
is a testament to keep them.
If the buoys were not there, if they weren't there, they would come in closer to 300 feet.
Yes, and then we will have a problem.
Skidoo, whatever the speeds are, those jet boats, those are the offenders. Anybody with
Even my boat, if there's no harbors there and I don't see anybody, I would probably consider coming. But at 300 feet, that's a football field. That's a long way out. And that's why we don't have problems, is because of that line of buoys.
I agree 100% with you. I'm not disputing that I think the buoy is likely preventable. I'm not arguing that. I'm just questioning whether we need to go the additional, why chop it up, create boat zones, create swim zones, or we just leave it status quo. And it's like Dave's alluding to, buoys keep the boat zone.
But I think it's the labeling. Even if we kept the buoys where we were, we have to change the labeling. It's either going to be swim zone only or take the buoys out and there's nothing. So the compromise would be one of these.
And that's the point that I'm questioning is, yeah, they're giving you this option, but the question is these are busy people, and are they really going to be focused in that argument on killing? Now, if they say, hey, we told you 6 months ago to do this, we haven't seen a response, then we say, okay, yeah, maybe we better get on it, or do we just let it die on the line and wait for that letter in the mail, that reminder in the mail saying, hey, you know, we haven't seen your reply, what's your timeline on this?
Either way, you need a plan. So even if 6 months they do send you the nasty gram, you need to have an act. So that's what we're doing. We're planning. Do we need to do this tomorrow? No. Do we have 6 months to come up with any additional funding we may need? Yes. I don't think that timeline. But I think the question is, do we need to do it? Whether it's now or eventually when we get a nasty gram, it needs to get done. When, I don't know.
And that's a good point. Maybe you just say, we have a plan, and here's the implementation schedule.
And
6 months from now, we'll have an idea of the
I
layout.
think that's what Lynn's
12
doing.
months from now,
That's what he's
we're
doing.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah, that's
I
exactly
agree.
where we are. So, yeah, no, I agree.
maybe there's.
Yeah, what we, we gave them, a map. When we first started talking about this, we gave them a map. They said swim zone. And, I brought it to the city council in the work session. We discussed it, went back and forth about it. But our current ordinance doesn't meet the statute. So that's one problem. Okay, so with that in mind, we have to have a plan to do something. Now, are they going to come down here tomorrow? I can't tell you they are or aren't. But it's kind of, if you're going to poke the bear, which is what happened here, then they're going to poke you back and say, you need to comply.
And it was a hot button topic, but I'm not sure it's a hot button topic now, or it'll be a hot button topic 6 months or 12 months.
The only problem here, if we look at the legalities, we've now addressed it from the start. So if somebody gets hurt and we didn't try to move forward with it, we stalled it or we didn't do anything, then where are you at? Let's think about that. I mean, why didn't we move forward with it? Why
So-
didn't we pursue it? Why didn't we?
So I'm going to ask one more time. The consensus of the group, I'm asking for that feedback. Let's say we have to do this. The consensus of the group plan, from what I'm hearing, is unless somebody has a different plan, put a couple boat zones in there and make the rest of it swim zones. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, not from me at all, and I'll.
Well, you don't want any-
But wait, if you want to see some grassroots, there's a lot of people
From a
that
perspective,
would
based
be
on the discussion
opposed to
and
In a
that.
condo?
negotiation here, I would recommend the middle two boardwalks versus north and south.
So it's in the middle.
Yeah, because this whole discussion around pick people up isn't the reason that you pull your boat up. So if you move it up to the second and then move it down to the second boardwalk.
Go back to the other. Because that's what.
Now you've split it up. So get rid of the bottom one. And those aren't exact, Lynn. That's not exactly.
Well, they're close, but they're not exact. We're trying to give some concepts. That's why we got two or three of them. We're not telling you that this is the.
It doesn't matter where exactly it is.
Yeah.
My request, and it's just mine, it's not about picking people up only. So if you could bring, if you had two empty areas, could you move them one farther south, or one farther north than the other picture you had up? And I
Well, as an example, here's the walk through.
yeah, that's the hotel right there.
Okay, so just to the north of that, that's that projection. If we fill this in, there's another access in that general area up
Yeah,
there.
thank you.
So,
So you got Morgan Street covered and the left and right of it, or maybe a boat zone, empty area.
right,
Instead of north or south
well, it would be north and south.
of the center, yes,
Yes.
but it wouldn't be as far north or as far south.
Right.
Thank you. That would be
I
helpful.
think it's, two would be acceptable, but they need to be spaced accordingly to where you're not right on top of where people are accessing the beach to swim.
Right.
At the same time, get it as close as possible to equal distances, so that no matter where you
Well,
access the
you don't have to go
beach,
this
you're not
far.
going
Right.
I agree.
a long way to get
Right.
to.
That's what we would create somehow with, but we'd have it so you could walk through an access that's close by.
What was the yardage that you were thinking of the space for the gap?
300. Yeah, we figured,
I'm good. Let's go to dinner.
That's what I mean.
it's better a little bit more than less in that area.
Did this help you then?
Huh?
Did this help you?
Yeah, okay. That's what all I was trying to do, is get some feedback from the public, see what their thoughts were.
So my question is, if you have 300 feet wide, and I'm not for or against it one way or the other, I'm just, the people who have boats currently, because I used to own a boat, would that, do they think that it would bring in basically some commercial kind of people coming in, or some people from the outside pulling up into there, if it was that wide of an area?
I
Start
already
getting
know,
well known,
I think
because
that-
I've gone to shell out with my boat, okay, many, many times in other islands,
but I think you're,
and I know that I can pull up there with my boat.
but I think you have to look at the fact, the average person that's out there, other than our residents, wouldn't even know where that boat area was.
Because they're no different. If we follow this plan, the distance between our existing buoys does not change.
Right.
We're adding a total of 6 internal buoys to give you 2 gaps.
That's right.
That's it.
And that's it.
And you're really
So answering your
not,
question, Julie, is,
if you're looking
does that
at
happen now? Or for 70 years? No, but I know what you're talking about. Boy, these areas, they can become crazy areas once it gets out.
Right,
That's what
that's
happened
what-
at
that's
12th
what I'm
Street
saying.
last March.
But we,
Then
so
we're
got
back
out.
to the
had a
Morgan
boat
Park
zone.
situation.
So we've always had a boat
where
zone till,
You
we still
people
do
that live
actually.
here will not be able to.
So we already have a boat zone now, and we don't have this issue. So we're on, I think we're on the same page. We can pick it apart.
So as a compromise on some of this, can we say if it's a swim zone, there's a no shark fishing as well? That's an issue that's really a big issue out there. It's much more dangerous than boats, is the shark fishing on the beaches.
The issues outside of a plan to whenever we address it, these are all great subjects. They really are. But it's not time to this.
That's
It's a good subject. I know what you're talking about, because you're drawing fish to swimmers, I get
But
it.
you're talking about chum in the water, so there's a
But that's
whole
for
law
another
about
day.
that.
Right.
And people have the right to fish.
Okay,
for
well,
livelihood.
I thank you for your
That's
time.
where they're.
And,
They call it
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
create